Daf Yomi, Tractate Avodah Zarah, page Membet, page 42, starting at the bottom of 41b. We were talking about an uncertainty does not override a certainty, and the last line is asking. The Gemara raises an objection. Ve'ein safek motzi midei vadai. V'atanya Amar Yehuda Ma'aseh b'shivchato. And is it so? Is it really true that an uncertainty does not override a certainty? But isn't it taught in a Braita that Rabbi Yehuda said there was an incident involving the maidservant, and now we turn to 42a, top of the page, with the words Shel Metzik Echad Berimon Shehetila Nefel Labor Uba Kohen Vehetzitz Leda Im Zachar Im Nekeva Uba Maaseh Lifnei Chachamim Betiharuhu Mipnei Shechulda Uba Dalas Mitzuyan Sham. There was an incident involving the maidservant of one violent person, a meitzik, it's called, a violent person in the city of Rimon, who cast a non-viable newborn into a pit. Guess it was a stillborn baby or something, or maybe just born not exactly perfect. He threw it into a pit, and a priest came and looked into the pit to ascertain whether the baby was male or whether it was female, as the length of time of a woman's ritual impurity after childbirth. If she gave birth to a non-viable newborn, depends on whether the child was male or female. See Leviticus chapter 12. And the incident came before the sages to rule whether or not the priest had contracted ritual impurity while standing over the corpse, and they deemed him ritually pure. The basis for this ruling was due to the fact that as martins and polecats are common there, it is likely the body was dragged away before the priest arrived at the pit. So I guess he never saw it. Okay, he never saw the thing, or he would have said he saw it. I mean, the Kohen would have said, would have admitted or something. Safek lo gereruhu v'ka'ati safek amaysi midei vadai. The Gemara concludes his objection again, and here in this case, where it is certain that the woman cast the non-viable newborn into the pit, and it is uncertain whether an animal dragged it away, and it is uncertain whether no animal dragged it away, sages nevertheless ruled that an uncertainty comes and overrides a certainty. Lo tema hitila nefel. I don't understand why that was an uncertainty, to be honest. I mean, in this case, where it is certain the woman cast a non-viable newborn into the pit, it was a man, a violent person in the city who cast a non-viable newborn. Maybe it was her husband, or was her, I don't know. But it was certain that the woman cast a non-viable newborn into the pit, and it is uncertain whether the animal dragged it away. Why don't you just ask the Kohen if he saw it or not? Oh, maybe he didn't see it, but maybe it was in a place where you couldn't see it, but it was still there. Maybe that's the uncertainty. Okay. All right. Anyway, the point is that we're trying to disprove the fact that an uncertainty We always say that a certainty always overrides an uncertainty, but the Gemara brought a case where an uncertainty overrides a certainty. Because it was uncertain whether the animal dragged it away, but it was certain that she threw it in there. So it's for sure in there, and we don't know if it's actually far away. Maybe the Kohen didn't see it, but it's still there. It's hidden somewhere. Okay? That's what it is. I think that's what it is. Anyways, that's how it makes sense to me. Uncertain whether an animal dragged it away, uncertain whether... Okay. And the sages nevertheless ruled that an uncertainty comes and overrides a certainty. Okay. Lo tema hatil nafalabo elaima hatil min nefalabo. The Gemara rejects this interpretation of the Braita. Do not say that the woman certainly cast a non-viable newborn into a pit. Rather say that she cast an object similar to a non-viable newborn into a pit. I don't get that. Is this like playing games or something? I mean, everyone knows the difference whether you throw a non-viable newborn into a pit or not. It's like playing with words. I don't get this one. She casts an object similar to a non-viable... And what object is similar to a non-viable newborn? Perhaps it's not the body of an infant. It might have merely been congealed blood. That congealed blood is not a non-viable infant. I'm sorry. Congealed blood looks nothing like a non-viable infant. It might have merely been congealed blood, which does not impart impurity. Therefore, it is a conflict between uncertainty and uncertainty. It is unclear whether the item that was cast into the pit would have rendered the priest ritually impure, and even if it could have, it might have already been dragged away. The Gemara asks, but isn't it taught in the Braita to ascertain whether it was male or whether it was female, indicating that the only uncertainty was with regard to its sex, as it was certainly a non-viable newborn? Leda im ruach pilo im nupaliti lo vim timatzeloma im timtzeloma nefaliti lo leda im zacha im nekeipo. The Gemara answers that this is what the Braita is saying. The priest attempted to examine two aspects of the miscarried entity. He sought to ascertain whether the woman miscarried, bearing an amorphous mass, or whether she cast a non-viable newborn into the pit. And if you say that she cast a non-viable newborn, he sought to ascertain whether it was male or whether it was female. And if you wish, say that there's a different answer. This case is not a conflict between certainty and uncertainty. Rather, it is a conflict between certainty and certainty. Since martens and polecats are common there, they certainly dragged the body away. Consequently, the ruling in this case does not contradict the principle that an uncertainty does not override a certainty. Etve matzah tavnit yad, tavnit regel, haray elu asurim, mipnei shekayotze bahen nevad, amai ha-shivarim nidnu. The Gemara returns to the dispute with regard to an idol that broke. Rabbi Yochanan raised an objection to the opinion of Reish Lakish from the Mishnah. If one found an object in the figure of a hand or in the figure of a foot, these are forbidden, as objects similar to those are worshipped. Rabbi Yochanan asks, why are they forbidden? Aren't they fragments, which, according to Reish Lakish, should be permitted? The Gemara answers, didn't Shmuel interpret the Mishnah as referring to a case where these objects are standing on their pedestals, which shows that they were designed this way initially? Eis goy mevatel avodah zarah shelo v'shel chavero v'Yisrael einu mevatel avodah zarah shel goy amai tevek avodah zarah shenishtabra me'eleha. Rabbi Yochanan raised another objection to the opinion of Reish Lakish from a Mishnah 52b. A Gentile can revoke the idolatrous status of his own object of idol worship or that of another Gentile. But a Jew cannot revoke the status of a Gentile's object of idol worship. Rabbi Yochanan asks, why can't a Jew revoke the status of a Gentile's idol according to Reish Lakish? Let it be treated like an object of idol worship that broke on its own, which Reish Lakish deems permitted. Amar Abaye, shepachasa v'chi pachasa mai have v'hatanan pachasa ap al pi shelo chizcha bitla. Abaye said the Mishnah is referring to a case where the Jew bent the idol out of shape without actually breaking it. The Gemara asks, and if he merely bent the idol out of shape, what of it? But didn't we learn in Mishnah 53a that if one bent an idol changing its shape, even if he did not remove any part of it, he thereby revokes its status as an object of idol worship? The Gemara answers, this statement applies only in a case where a Gentile bent the idol, changing its shape, but in a case where a Jew bent it, changing its shape, its status as an object of idol worship is not revoked. And Rava said in a different answer, actually, the basic halacha is that in a case where a Jew bent it, changing its shape, its status as an object of idol worship is also revoked. But the sages issued a decree that such an idol retains its idolatrous status, lest a Jew first lift it up and then attempt to revoke its status. In this case, the idol's status is not revoked, as when a Jew lifts an idol, he acquires it, and it becomes an object of idol worship in a Jew's possession. And any object of idol worship in a Jew's possession can never have its idolatrous status revoked. Therefore, only when an idol breaks on its own does Reish Lakish maintain that its status is revoked. Esvei goy shehevi avanim min amakulis v'chipa b'hen drachim utratios mutarim v'Yisrael shehevi avanim min amakulis v'chipa b'hen drachim utratios asuros amai tehevi avodah zarah shenishtabra me'eleha. Rabbi Yochanan raised another objection to the opinion of Reish Lakish from a Braita in the case of a Gentile who brought stones from stone heaps that were used in the worship of the deity Mercury. They call it Amarkulis, and who then paved roads and built theaters with them. Is it permitted to derive benefit from them as the Gentile revoked their idolatrous status? But in the case of a Jew who brought stones that were used in the worship of Mercury and who then paved roads and built theaters with them, it is prohibited to derive benefit from them. Rabbi Yochanan asked, according to Reish Lakish, why does a stone such as this retain its idolatrous status? Let it be treated like an object of idol worship that broke on its own, which Reish Lakish deems permitted. The Gemara answers here too. Rabbi Yochanan's question may be answered in accordance with the opinion of Rava, that the sages issued a decree that an object of idol worship retains its idolatrous status when a Jew attempts to revoke it, lest the Jew lift and acquire the idol. which would make it impossible to subsequently revoke its status. Esvei goy sheshiba avodah zarah tzakoi v'shipuye hamutari letzalka yesura v'shipuye hamutari Yisrael sheshiba avodah zarah ben letzalka he v'shipuye asurin amai teheve Avodah Zarah shenishtabra me'eleha. Rabbi Yochanan raised another objection to the opinion of Reish Lakish when we write in the case of a Gentile who shaved down an object of idol worship for his own sake, as he needed the shavings. The idol itself and his shavings are then permitted. If he did it for the sake of the idol to improve the appearance, the idol is forbidden, but its shavings are permitted. But in the case of a Jew who shaved down an object of idol worship, whether he did it for his own sake or for the sake of the idol itself and its shavings are forbidden. Rabbi Yochanan asked, according to Reish Lakish, in a case where a Jew shaved the idol for his own sake, why are the shavings forbidden? Let it be treated like an object of idol worship that broke on its own. The Gemara answers here too. Rabbi Yochanan's question may be answered according to the opinion of Rava that the sages issued a decree that an object of idol worship retains its idolatrous status when a Jew attempts to cause it to be revoked. Rav Yossi Omer, Shochi v'zer luach omes ilayam, amru lo, af hi naset zevel, uchetiv, lo yidbak biyadcha miuma min acherem, amai, teheve Avodah Zarah shenishtabra me'aleha. Rabbi Yochanan raised another objection to the opinion of Reish Lakish from a Mishnah 43a. Rabbi Yossi says when one encounters an idol, should he grind the idol and throw the dust to the wind, or cast it into the sea? The rabbi said to him, what is the good of that? That also gives a Jew benefit from the idol. It becomes fertilizer for his crops. I don't see how it would become fertilizer for his crops, but anyway. And deriving any kind of benefit is prohibited, as is written, and nothing of the prescribed items shall cleave to your hand. Deuteronomy 13:18. Rabbi Yochanan asked, according to Reish Lakish, why is this prohibited? Let it be treated like an object of idol worship that broke on its own. The Gemara answers here too. Rabbi Yochanan's question may be answered according to the opinion of Rava, cited above, that the sages issued a decree with regard to this matter. Rabbi Yossi ben Yasian Omer, Matzatzuras Drakon Virosho Chatuch, Safek Goy Chatacho, Safek Yisrael Chatacho, Mutar, Vada Yisrael Chatacho, Asur. Rabbi Yochanan raised another objection to the opinion of Reish Lakish from Braita. Rabbi Yossi ben Yasian says, if one found an object in the figure of a dragon with its head severed, but it is uncertain whether a Gentile severed it, and it is uncertain whether a Jew severed it, the object is permitted. But if it is certain that a Jew severed it, it is forbidden. Rabbi Yochanan asked, according to Reish Lakish, why is it forbidden? Let it be treated like an object of idol worship that broke on its own. The Gemara answers here too. Rabbi Yochanan's question may be answered according to the opinion of Rava, that the sages issued a decree with regard to this matter. Rabbi Yochanan raised another objection to the opinion of Reish Lakish from a Braita. Rabbi Yossi says that one may not even plant vegetables in the rainy season under a tree worshipped as an idol, as foliage may fall on them, serving as fertilizer. Rabbi Yochanan asked, according to Reish Lakish, why should a leaf from such a tree retain its idolatrous status? Let it be treated like an object of idol worship that broke on its own. Shani has some over there, it's different. The Ikar Avodah Zarah. There's different. The main object of idol worship, the tree, still exists fully intact. And now we turn to 42b. V'hashibuya dikavad Zarah kayames ekatan v'salka hiyasura v'shibuyam ta'in. The Gemara asks, but consider the case of shavings where the main object of idol worship still exists, and nevertheless is taught in the Braita cited earlier that if a Gentile shaved an idol down for its own sake, the idol is forbidden, but its shavings are permitted. Here too, in the case of the fallen leaves of a tree that is worshipped as an idol, it should be permitted to derive benefit from them. Brief interlude. Rav Huna b'rei Yehoshua Amar Lefi she'ein avodah zarah betela dar gedilata. Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yehoshua, says the reason the leaves are not permitted is because the status of an object of idol worship cannot be revoked by its natural manner of growth, since the falling of leaves is a natural phenomenon. Their detachment from the tree does not affect a revocation of their status as objects of idol worship. רבי שמעון לקיש לא יוחנן, כן שבראש האילן של הקדש לא נהנים ולא מועלים בראשה של אשרה יתיז בקנה. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish raised an objection to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan from a Mishnah, Me'ilah 13b, with regard to a bird's nest at the top of a tree that belongs to the temple treasury. One may not derive benefit from it ab initio, but if one derived benefit from it, he is not liable for misuse of property consecrated to the temple. Okay. A bird's nest at the top of a tree. Okay. With regard to a nest that is at the top of a tree used as part of his idolatrous rites, although one may not climb the tree, as that would be benefiting from an object of idol worship, one may knock the nest off with a pole and benefit from it by using it for firewood and the like. Kasol kadaita akigon shishibra mimenaitzim kinata bahem bekatani yatiz bekane. In analyzing this Braita, it enters your mind that this is referring to a case where the bird broke off branches from the worshipped tree and built a nest with them. And yet the Braita teaches that one may knock the nest off with a pole and it is then permitted to benefit from it. Apparently, the forbidden branches used in the construction of the nest lost their idolatrous status without human involvement, in accordance with the opinion of Reish Lakish that an idol that breaks loses its status. The Gemara explains, here we are dealing with a case where the bird brought branches from elsewhere and built a nest with them on top of the worship tree. The branches were never part of an object of idol worship. Dekanami dikatani gali hekdesh lo nehenin v'lo ma'alim. Iyamrit v'shlama di'aiti etzimi alma haydu dikatani gali hekdesh lo nehenin v'lo ma'alim. The Gemara comments, the language of the Mishnah is also precise, if read with this understanding, as it teaches with regard to a nest in a consecrated tree. One may not derive benefit from it ab initio, but if one derive benefit from it, he is not liable for misuse of consecrated property. Granted, if you say that the bird brought branches from elsewhere, This explanation is consistent with that which the Mishnah teaches with regard to a nest in a consecrated tree, namely, that one may not derive benefit from it, but if one derive benefit from it, he is not liable for misuse of consecrated property. According to this understanding of the Mishnah, one may not derive benefit from the nest by rabbinic law, but if one derive benefit from it, he is not liable for misusing consecrated property by Torah law, as the branches are not consecrated but were brought from elsewhere. But if you say that the bird broke off branches from the tree itself and built a nest with them, why is it taught that one who derives benefit from it is not liable for misusing consecrated property? Aren't the branches consecrated? Evidently, the Mishnah is referring to a nest that was built with branches from other trees in accordance with Rabbi Yochanan's understanding that an object of idol worship that broke on its own is still forbidden. Midei Iria Hachabegedolin The Gemara responds as proof for Rabbi Yochanan's understanding of the Mishnah. Does this argument prove anything? The Mishnah can still be interpreted as referring to a case where the branches for the nest came from the tree itself, and here we are dealing with a case of growths that came afterward, meaning branches that grew after the tree was consecrated, and the Tana of the Mishnah holds that there is no prohibition against the misuse of consecrated property with regard to such growths. Another explanation of the Mishnah is according to the opinion Rabbi Yochanan is presented. Rabbi Bahu says, Rabbi Yochanan says, what does it mean that one may knock off the nest? It means that one may knock off the chicks, but one may not derive benefit from the nest itself. באפרוחים, כאן וכאן מותרים, בביצים, כאן וכאן אסורים. אמר רבי אשי ורחוכים שצריכים לימוד כמצווים דמו. Rabbi Yaakov said to Rabbi Bar Tachlifa, I will explain the Mishnah to you. With regard to the chicks which can fly away and are not confined to the tree, both here and there, meaning both in the case of the tree consecrated to temple treasury and in the case of trees for idol worship, deriving benefit from them is permitted. But with regard to the eggs, both here and there, meaning both of these types of trees, driving benefit is prohibited as they are not seen as an independent of the tree. Rav Ashi added to this and said, and chicks that still need their mother to survive are considered like eggs. Driving benefit from them is prohibited. And now we start a new Mishnah. A new Mishnah. Hamoitzi came on them to us Kama, to us about to us the Rakun, Belichem Liam Hamelach. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, She'al Amechubadin Asulin, She'al Amuvazin Mutarim. The Mishnah says, in the case of one who finds vessels, and upon them is a figure of the sun, or a figure of the moon, or a figure of a dragon, he must take them and cast them into the Dead Sea, and not derive any benefit from them, as they are assumed to be objects of idol worship. Rabbi Shimon, why only the Dead Sea? Why not the Mediterranean? Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says those figures that are upon respectable vessels are forbidden. Those that are upon disgraceful vessels are permitted. Okay. Lememra, now the Gemara says, the Talmud says, Lememra, dehaniu lepalchilahu. Vaitel. The Gemara says, Lememra, dehani dehu lepalchilahu, lemidiachina la, uriminihi hashar, l'shum yamim, l'shum naharos, לשום מדבר, לשום חם, לשום לבנה, לשום כוכב מזלות, לשום מיכאל שר הגדול, לשום שלשול קטן, הרי אלו זבחי מייסים. The Gemara asks with regard to the specific figures listed in the Mishnah, is this to say that people worship only these figures but not any other item? And the Gemara raises a contradiction between this list and that which is taught in another Mishnah, in Chulin 39b, with regard to one who slaughters an animal for the sake of, meaning to worship the seas, the oceans or seas, the sake of rivers, the sake of the wilderness, for the sake of the sun, or for the sake of the moon, or for the sake of the stars and constellations, or for the sake of Michael, the great ministering angel, or even for the sake of a small worm. In all of these cases, the animal is forbidden, as these animals have the status of offerings to the dead, meaning idols.
Meitzar Mipalachi, Hanitalata, Shivaziarelo, Upalachilu, Lemideachri, Leno, Behanma, Abdilahu. Abai said in response to the contradiction with regard to worship, people might worship any item that they find with regard to fashioning figures and then worshiping them only with regard to these three items listed in the Mishnah, which are important to people fashioning figures of them and worship them. With regard to figures of any other entity, people make them merely for ornamental purposes. Menaket Rav Sheshet Chumana Mat Niata Pitani Kol Mazalos Mutarin Chutz Mimazal Chamor Kol HaPartzufim Mutarin Chutz MiPartzuf Adam V'chol HaTzurot Mutarot Chutz MiTzurat Drakon. Rav Sheshet would consolidate the principles of the Braita pertaining to this matter and teach: figures of all constellations are permitted except for the following celestial objects: the sun and the moon, and figures of all faces are permitted except for the human face, and all figures of other items are permitted except for the figure of a dragon. Amar Mar, kol mazal mutar chutz mimazal chama levana, hach b'mayiskin elev v'yisem kol mazalos mishari v'achetiv lo tasun iti lo tasun kidmut shamashai hamishamashin lifnei b'maron ifnei b'maron. The master said figures of all constellations are permitted except the following celestial objects: the sun and the moon. The Gemara asks, what are we dealing with here? If we say that the reference is to one who forms these figures, meaning Rav Sheshet is discussing the issue of which figures permitted to form, is forming figures of all the other constellations permitted. But isn't it written, you shall not make with me gods of silver or gods of gold, you shall not make for you? Exodus 20:20. This verse is interpreted to mean, you shall not make figures of my attendants who serve before me on high, meaning those celestial bodies, including the constellations that were created to serve God. Ela, Shita b'motze, Uchilitzna l'motzi kelim alen, tzuras chama, tzuras leonat, tzuras derakon yorichem liyam hamelach. Rather, it is obvious that this halakha is referring to a case where one finds vessels with these figures on them. And this is, as we learned in the Mishnah, in the case of one who finds vessels upon them is a figure of the sun, a figure of the moon, or a figure of a dragon, he must take them and cast them into the Dead Sea. This indicates that it is permitted to derive benefit from any other vessels that were found and that had figures on them. פרצוף אדם, מי יעשהו? רצונן. המוסיקים עליהם צורת חמה, צורת לבנה, צורת דרקון, יריכם לים המלח, צורת דרקון. In פרצוף אדם, no. The Gemara asks, if it is the case where one finds vessels with these figures on them, say, the middle clause of Rav Sheshet's statement, figures of all faces are permitted except for the human face. Now, if it is a case where one finds vessels with figures on them, is a vessel with a figure of the human face forbidden? But didn't we learn in the Mishnah, in the case of one who finds vessels, and upon them is a figure of the sun, a figure of the moon, or figure of a dragon, he must take them and cast them into the Dead Sea. This indicates that a vessel with a figure of a dragon is forbidden, but a vessel with the figure of a human face is not. Ela pshita ve'ose k'derav Huna bereid Rav Yehoshua. Rather, the Gemara concludes it is obvious that the statement that the figure of a human face is forbidden is referring to a case where one forms a figure and this is prohibited in accordance with the statement of Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yehoshua, who states on 43b that the interpretation of the verse, "You shall not make with me gods of silver or gods of gold, you shall not make for you," Exodus 20:20 is, "Do not make of me," like with me. Don't use, don't make with me. Make something with clay. Don't make with me. Do not form the figure of a person who is created in the image of God. The Gemara asks, if it is referring to a case where one forms a figure, say the last clause of Rav Shesh's statement. All figures are permitted except for the figure of a dragon. And if it's referring to a case where one forms a figure, is forming the figure of a dragon prohibited? But isn't it written, "You shall not make with me gods of silver or gods of gold"?